Well, good morning, Legacy Bible Church. It's Wednesday. We're here with Sarah, and we'll just jump right into it. Looking forward to what we're going to talk about today, Sarah.
Me too. I am looking forward to it because I always get a new revelation every time I listen to teachings on Sunday mornings, and even sometimes if I go back and listen to one of our chats. And every time, I don't know, maybe maybe I'll come to a point where I don't get surprised, but every time I listen, I'm always surprised at how wrong I had it before and how the lens, we could call it, or the what is it we always call
the hermeneutic?
I don't remember the hermeneutic that Legacy Bible Church teaches is so right on, and it matches every time. And every time it comes together, I'm just punched in the face, just like, whoa, this is what I've been missing my whole life. And I had another aha moment like that. Again, 2 weeks ago was the last time you actually taught a sermon. And it was continuing with the Sermon on the Mount. And the one thing I told you earlier, I probably listened to it 6 or more times when you talked about, is it Matthew? It's Matthew 7, 4. How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, and look, the log is in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. And
you're reading NAS.
This is NAS. Yeah. So that's what you were talking about. There was more, there's more aha moments throughout that I could probably just sit and list. The golden rule, the talking about dogs and swine. There was so much, but I really just wanted to sit and almost just regurgitate again. I've been thinking about it so much, but again, just talk it back and forth. I've made some notes of removing the log. So before I ever knew what Legacy Bible Church taught, before I was introduced to this, it was simple. When you went to church, that verse meant that you cannot go and tell someone about their sin or judge them about their sin when you have that same sin in your life. So if I am struggling with an addiction to drugs, I don't know, not even that, because that wouldn't be. What's a simple? I don't know. I have to.
I watch too much TV.
I watch too much TV. Whatever. So that's a good one. So me and my husband, maybe I'm sitting there frustrated by him because he's on his phone too much or he's watching too much TV. Well, if I would go and read that, I'd be like, okay, now Sarah, you watch TV too. So until you can get a hold of that sin, you need to just not look at him or think about him and let him be him. And it's always been, remove the sin from your life. I even had a pastor say one time that, which is funny now because I just read it, clearly says do not judge. But he said, we still have a place to judge after we've removed that sin from our life. And so listening on Sunday morning, what I was able to actually see clearly is that, one, I know I'm never going to have sin removed from my life ever. It's there unless I'm in spiritually spoken worship.
Just like John said, we have
sin.
Yeah.
But that when I remove the log is when I'm in that moment of worship. That's when it is actually removed. I am righteous. I am without sin. I am above the law, right? Is that the right way to say it?
That is exactly how to say it.
Above the law.
Because you've entered into that heavenly fellowship in Christ Jesus, and that is a realm of sinlessness, and it is above the law.
And then I can see through, because you said that it's not translate, like they translate see clearly, and you'd rather say see through because we're seeing through the darkness.
Well, for the sake of the audience, where does that come in? See through. Do you remember? It's in, I think it's in 7:5.
Yes, 7:5.
That will lead them into that. If you want to talk about the verb diablepo.
You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. And that's the main thing I've just been so focused on.
And so the verb to see clearly, translated in NAS, and probably that way in most English translations, The verb is diablepo. And just real quickly, diablepo is used only 3 times in the Bible. It's not used in the Old Testament Greek, the LXX. It's only used in the New Testament. It's only used 3 times. So it's a very rare verb. And even in ancient usage, it's very rare. And so it has been translated clearly because it pulls from the context in chapter 6, where there are several references to clear the eye. When your eye is clear, then your body is full of light. That's a different word, though. I think the word there was aplus. That's a different word. But because of that context in chapter 6, the English translations have tended to bring that into this verb, diablepo, and translate it clearly. And then that misses the root literal sense that of diablepo means dia, through, blepo, to see, means to see through. And so clearly it's okay. Mm-hmm. It sort of captures the meaning, but it misses the whole context of you're seeing through something. And that's really what the text wants to draw out here. Then you're able to see through, to remove the speck from your brother's eye. And so the idea there of seeing through is having insight about the way to evangelize, the way to remove the speck from your brother's eye. You're able to see through the fog and the darkness of the sin-infected world we're in, to see that on the basis of good, sound doctrine, which is really what Jesus is inferring with the verb to see through. Then you're able to see through. He's saying, then you will have sound doctrine in order to understand the only way that you can remove a speck from your brother's eye. So that I wanted to kind of touch on that because you brought up the verb. So that to see through, which is translated clearly in most English translations, is the realm of sound doctrine, out of which you then understand the true way, the proper way that Jesus is talking about, that you can actually remove a speck from your brother's eye.
And to the point of seeing through, I love the way the word picture I have when I think of see through is now, and it does make me see clearly, but I love the idea of seeing through. I'm seeing through the lens of this hermeneutic, and that's what Jesus was teaching on. He was teaching about spiritually spoken worship. He was teaching about being above the law. There's only one way. Yeah. And so when we see through, when we're praying in the Spirit, we can now, that edification that comes back to us, now we can see through that evangelism. Yeah. That's the only way to remove the speck is to evangelize, but it's not our job. It's the job of the Holy Spirit through the Rhema word of Christ, through spiritually spoken worship. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, and really in keeping, you brought up the teaching on Sunday. This is where I actually go into a little more detail about all of this. But the idea here is then you will see through to remove the speck from your brother's eye. The whole idea there that Jesus is driving toward is you're not the speck remover. You can participate in speck removing, but God's the speck remover. Not us. God is God. We are not, but we can participate. And so Jesus is saying you'll see the way through. And the context there is that you will understand how you can participate in the process of speck removing.
Because the way that this has been taught in so many just mainstream churches is we actually have the job of getting the tweezers and removing the speck, and that's not at all. That's not at all what Jesus is talking about. And I know that that's where a lot of Christians and unbelievers have been hurt, because you have the Christian who feels like they have the law removed because they don't struggle with that sin.
I'm so holy. I'm so righteous. I am now qualified to talk about your sin.
And in fact, you're actually so far lost, you don't see clearly, you don't see
Right.
through anything.
Right.
Because that's
Because
completely opposite.
that type of self-righteous person has lost concept. They've lost the idea of their own sin infectedness. They're the ones that John was referring to. If ever we might say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. That's the one, the self-righteous one is the one that
is deceived.
John is talking about there.
I want to touch on one thing that you said before we started talking on camera. You talked about do not judge so that you will not be judged. From the way you judge, you'll be judged, and by your standard of measure, it'll be measured to you.
Mm-hmm.
You had said something about the law of Moses. Will you repeat that? Because that was big, and because I love to hear it a second time.
Well, what Jesus is basically saying there is that there are two modes of operation. You can operate under the mode of self-deception in Moses. Keep in mind that Jesus was still under the law of Moses when he was in Palestine, walking in the flesh and teaching. He was a Jew and he was under the law. And so the law of Moses was still in effect, and the Jews had misinterpreted Moses, whereas Moses was always intended to shine a light on sin, to expose your utter sinfulness. The Jews had kind of flipped it upside down and said, well, we can do the law and attain to the righteousness of God by keeping the law. That's why Paul would talk about when he was a Pharisee, that he was blameless under the law. Blameless word, blameless amongst his brothers, that, you know, he was so righteous doing the law, blameless in this deceptive way of thinking about the law. And so Jesus was referring here, if you are going to flip Moses upside down and judge other people by Moses as if you were now above the law because you're righteous, then you are subjecting yourself to that very law, Moses. That's how you're going to be judged. That's why Jesus did say in the book of John, he did say that Jesus said, I'm not going to be your accuser. Moses is your accuser. And so that's at the end of chapter 5 of John. If you want to go read that, Jesus says himself that, you know, I'm not your accuser. Moses is your accuser. And so he's basically saying there, if you're going to judge others, you're judging basically by the standard that Moses set, by the 10 commandments, if you will. Mm-hmm. If you're going to judge others by the 10 commandments, well, guess what? You're going to be subjected to that same judgment of the 10 commandments, because we are all utterly sinful before a holy and righteous God. And if we are going to operate in our flesh under deception, thinking that we have attained to the righteousness of God and we can now judge other people, Jesus is simply saying there that that's the same standard. You're going to judge by Moses, you're going to be judged by Moses also.
And when you're judged by Moses, you're guilty.
We're all guilty.
There's no freedom. You're done.
There's no freedom. That's why Paul called Moses in Romans 8:2, I think it's either 8:1, I think it's 8:2, the law of sin and death. When he refers to the law of sin and death, Paul's talking about Moses, because that's all Moses can do. Moses can only convict of sin. He can't do anything to fix the sin problem. And that's why Jesus gets back to removing the speck from the eye. God is the speck remover. God is the solution through Jesus Christ. Jesus is the solution to the sin problem. So to finish answering your question, when he's talking about don't judge lest you be judged, but the measure with which you judge is the measure with you're going to be judged. Would you read that again, just so we stay true to what the text says there?
It's on the screen.
I think it's 7:2. You have up
I've got it on the screen, 7:1-5.
The Stauros version.
Titled Eating from the Wrong Tree.
Okay, so 7, do not judge. So you've got Stauros on the screen. I'm reading from NASB.
Perfect.
Do not judge that you will not be judged. For in the way you judge, you will be judged,
There
And
you
by
go.
your standard of measure, it will be measured to you.
Okay, so by the way you judge, you will be judged. And so if you're judging, you can only judge according to Moses. Moses is a standard. The 10 Commandments is a standard by which you're going to judge the sin of other people. And so Jesus just saying, if you're going to judge other people by Moses, guess what? Moses is going to be your accuser too. And he said that the second part was?
For the way you judge, by your standard measure, it will be measured to you.
So by your standard of measure, the inference there is that there is Moses is a standard of measure, and the other standard of measure is the law of the Spirit, the new covenant law of the Spirit. And so if you have died to sin, which is how you remove the log from your eye, if you died to sin, you're participating with God in the speck removal. He's the speck remover, which that means the solution to sin, if you will. He's the solution to the sin problem. That's what Jesus is talking about, speck removing.
The solution to sin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus is the solution to the sin problem. He's the, if you will, he's the speck remover. And we participate with him when we remove the log from our eye, which is mortifying sin in the flesh, dying to self, and we participate with God in that heavenly process of evangelism, of speck removal, of the solution to the sin problem. Then Jesus is saying that by that measure, it will be measured back to you. And then that gets right into the realm of first remove the log from your eye, then you will see clearly. That's where it's measured back to you. When you participate in that process, there's a payback. You remember in chapter 6, there are two references using the verb apodidomai, payback. One is in praying, there's a payback, and fasting, there's a payback. Praying and fasting and praying is the realm of spiritually spoken worship. There's a payback where we're edified. Some of that spoken rhema of God comes back to us as a payback. And so that is where Jesus is saying, by the means by which you measure, it'll be measured back to you. So if you're participating with God in his process of speck removal, he's saying by that measure, it'll be measured back to you. That's the apodidomai payback for praying and fasting. And so that we will see through, it's a whole kind of a circular thing. Then we will be able to see through this realm of darkness we're in, to see through that there's a solution to the sin problem. It's God. It's the heavenly fellowship with the Father and his Son, Jesus Christ. We'll see through to that reality. That's the realm of good, sound doctrine about the faith. It all ties together. Everything Jesus is saying all through the Sermon on the Mount, chapter 6, tying into the beginning of chapter 7 here with this idea of it'll be met by the means by which you measure, it'll be measured back to you. We'll be able to see through praying and fasting. There's a payback. That's all the realm of edification, divine edification. Jesus is still the rabbi. He's still teaching. He's still edifying. When we participate with him in that realm, he pays back out of that spoken rhema. Some of it is a payback for us. And that's the measure by which it's measured back to us. That's the means by which we're edified and we get sound doctrine so that we can see through, so that we will enter back into that realm to remove the speck by participating with God, letting him be the speck remover to remove the speck from your brother or sister's eye. That's how
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing.
So to sum it all up, I guess what is just my aha moment, like even just sitting there listening to you, I get a little giddy, because to sum it all up, I am never on my own, sitting here with you, talking, walking out on the street, even reading my Bible, even praying, even just talking with my kids, teaching them about the love of God. I have a log in my eye. I cannot remove it. There's nothing I can do. There's no amount of self-control I can have, is what you're saying.
But but even with that log in your eye, you have the ability through all of this process to see through to the solution.
So yes, I do have that. So I can't ever get rid of the log out of my mind. I'm going to sit with it. That's my nature. That's what I have. Through spiritually spoken worship, speaking in tongues, worshiping the Father, I am above the law. I am righteous.
Yeah.
I am without sin.
That's where the log's removed.
That's where the log is removed.
Sin in the flesh is mortified.
Is gone.
Yeah.
And then I can evangelize. And I can participate with the speck remover.
Yeah.
But I don't have the job of removing it.
That's right.
Ever again. I never have to sit and worry about taking someone's sin to them and showing it in front of them.
Yeah, we don't, and in fact, that's the whole point Jesus is making, is don't do that. Jesus is saying, I'll do it. Just participate with me. I'll judge. I'll remove the specks. I just need your organs of speech. Will you let me use your organs of speech? I'll take care of the rest. It's that easy. It's too easy to be true, isn't it?
No, it just takes, you know how hard it is to mortify sin yourself so that you can go tend to someone else, because of course I can see their sin and it's much easier to tell them not to sin and show them how not to sin, but I still go home and do the same thing.
Yeah.
But
that's why Jesus really raised the bar to the nth degree on this idea of how sinful are we. He said, you've heard it said that if you well, there are two realms of my presence of mind is not good enough, but essentially he said the realm of adultery, for instance, is not that you physically cheat on your spouse, but you actually think in a moral adulterous thought. You're an adulterer. Or if you call your brother Raka and get angry at a brother, you've committed the same sin as murder. Well, how many of us go through any period of time without getting annoyed, angry at another person, or having an improper thought in our mind about another person? And Jesus is saying essentially there when he says that you're utterly sinful. And even though on outward appearances you think that you've conquered sin, the reality is this: you still get angry at people, you still have immoral thoughts, you're still utterly sinful before God. And
so while someone might hit their wife because they're angry, that's a log. It just as if you just got angry and in your mind thought, gosh, I wish you'd just leave me alone. Yeah. That's a log.
That's still a log. That's what Jesus is saying there, is the realm, the standard of attaining to the righteousness of God is impossible for sin-infected humans to achieve. We have to, the only way that we can achieve that log removed from our eyes, we just got to die. We have to die. And that's what he says. That's the dying to self. That's denying self. If you will not deny yourself, take up your cross and come after me, you cannot be my disciple. What's his disciple? That's where he teaches. That's where he edifies. That's where he gives a payback. That's where he gives clear vision. That's where he gives people the ability to see through. When you will deny self, take up your cross, come after Jesus, which is what John called the fellowship with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. If you won't do that, Jesus is saying, I can't teach you. I can't edify you if you won't do that. You cannot be my disciple.
So, okay, the one little, because when you were saying that, I had my other aha moment. It kind of goes along with that, is the golden rule that we've always heard: do unto others as you want others to do unto you. And that is praying in the Spirit.
Oh, man.
And so just I was saying, that is the only way I'm loving on someone. That is the only way. Hold on, because you just, now my thought, I had a whole train of thought why I brought that up, because you were just saying something about that. I was like, oh yeah, that was a really big moment when I sat and listened to you say that. But that goes along with with all of it when because removing the sin, loving on other people, that's the only way that we can love on someone. That's the only way we can agape someone is praying in the Spirit.
Yeah. That's exactly what Jesus
I
meant
wish I could have
when
correlated
he said,
it.
Yeah.
I didn't do
When
a good
Jesus
job.
said, a new commandment I have for you, that even as I have loved you, so also you love one another. Agape kind of love. And there's only one way to do that. Agape is the God kind of love. And the only way to God kind of love others, which gets into the realm of speck removal, is we have to die to self, mortify sin in the flesh, and participate with God. And then we become his instruments to love people. Speck removal, evangelism, the God kind of love. That's the only way to do it.
That's incredible. I'm probably going to go
So
back.
the golden rule, you wanted to tie it to the golden rule.
Well, you were saying something, and that keyed me, and I went back and read it because you said something, but now I can't correlate to what you had just said, and it made sense in my mind, and then I spoke out loud, but it didn't. But that was another aha moment for me after I sat and listened to the Speck, the log and the Speck, and then I went on to listen to more of the golden rule, and I was like, oh, again, we have it wrong. All we've been doing is don't slap your sister because you don't want your sister to slap you, and don't think an ugly thought because you wouldn't want your husband to think an ugly thought about you. Don't
and
do
it's
it to
okay.
others.
It's okay to have that conversation.
Yeah,
because we should, out of respect for other people, we should try to treat other people the way we want to be treated.
It's a good standard to live by.
Yeah. But the whole point of the gospel, if you will, of the good message of Christ is that in the end, we're sin infected, and we can only operate with our sin infected mind out of a sin infected motivation. Our motivations when we think we're treating other people the way we want to be treated, our motives are sin infected. And the only way that we can really achieve to the righteousness of God in how we treat other people, right, is to get into that speck removing mode where we're participating with God, allowing him to be the speck remover. We're participating, we're his organs of speech. And then it's out of that realm that we're doing to others the way we want done unto us, because it's going to be measured back to us. So we're God's instrument to love the world, to do to others, out of which it's done back to us. So we do to others as we would want to be done to us.
And that's what, like you said on Sunday, when someone says, "Can I pray for you?" Pray in the Spirit for me.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just pray in the Spirit, and that's do to others as you want others. So when I pray for other people, I just start praying in the Spirit. I don't know, I just pray in the Spirit. Of course, that's what I want done for me as well. That's the best. That's God's will. That's the best place to be.
Yeah. So to your point, if someone asks me, hey, is there something I can pray for you? If I know that they won't be offended by it and they pray in the Spirit, I'll say, just pray in the Spirit. That if you want to pray for me and your faith walk is a faith walk of spiritually spoken prayer, that's how you can pray for me. You can pray in the Spirit.
Yeah, that's the best way.
I won't offend people if they don't pray in the Spirit. I'll give them something.
Yeah.
Pray for my move that's coming up. Pray for my family. Pray for wisdom for me. I'm not in the business of offending people unnecessarily, but if I know they pray in the Spirit, man, that's how you can pray for me. You just pray in the Spirit.
So all of that to say, I think anybody listening should go back and listen to, it was 2 weeks ago. I don't know what the date was. Go back and listen to the last teaching, because if it created so many aha moments, like I have a list of stuff we could just keep going on about.
There was part 4, the kingdom of God and his righteousness, part 4 on April 17th.
April 17th, part 4. And there might be a part 5.
I think there will be.
So, yeah.
All right.
That's it.
Well, thank you for being with us. We always enjoy if you have questions or concerns, or you just want to comment on something, You can do it, Sarah, at sarah.cobb@lbcdfw.org, or steve.goodall@lbcdfw.org, or robin.goodall@lbcdfw.org. We'd love to hear from you. God bless you. We'll see you on Sunday with another teaching, and then God willing, we'll be back next Wednesday and have another chat time with Sarah. We love you. We'll see you then.